Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with Ira Bloom, who is CEO of ANI Private Resorts. Now, what's ANI Private Resorts? We're going to find out all about it. Ira is based in beautiful Anguilla, and he's talking to us from there. And he's going to tell us about this very unique private resort collection that I think, given the tenor of the times and COVID-19, may be the perfect fit for some of your clients. And you'll find out about all that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, first of all, Ira, how are you? I already said, where are you? So we're all very jealous right now. It looks beautiful back there. And you said if it gets a little windy, you'll close the door. But so far, so good, huh?
So far, so good. Yes. It's not a bad place to be for sure. I've actually been here for the most part all of the last 14 months. And yeah, Anguilla's been a pretty good place to be. We actually have zero COVID here now. At different times, we've had a few imported cases here and there, a little bit of no community spread, actually. So it's been a place where we're living without any protocols for this, for the most part, for the residents here.
That's great. That's great. It sounds like the perfect place to quarantine, if you will, or certainly isolate. Now, let's tell us a little bit about ANI Private Resorts, right. When it was founded, what it focuses on, and how it has evolved.
So ANI actually started in Anguilla. This is our headquarters where we started the collection from. My wife and I moved here in 2003. Got into some development down here. And what was the last of our projects in Anguilla is what became ANI in Anguilla. It was purchased by a gentleman from the States named Tim Reynolds, who loved to travel with friends and families. And all the places we were building were larger kind of service villas. But Tim loved to go away with 20, 25 people, friends, family, cousins, and love the idea of having a team in place to kind of take care of you when you're away like that. And so very much the collection was built with Tim in mind, who said, hey, what would it take for me to hire you and Bonnie, build this collection around the world and build these private resorts in pretty amazing locations. So that's kind of the history is, from us starting here where we opened ANI in Anguilla in 2010. We opened in Thailand and Sri Lanka in 2016, and we opened in Dominican Republic in 2017, and all with this same private resort concept in mind.
No, that's great. And I misspoke. You call it ANI Private Resort,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So ANI doesn't mean anything.
ANI is not an acronym for anything. Actually, the ANI is the shortened version of a Swahili word called Anjani.
Okay.
And we kind of simplified that word to ANI, and it means the road, the path, the way. And from the private resort standpoint, it's like Tim had this vision of him hopping around from property to property, kind of this wanderlust trail kind of path around the world. But in addition, which maybe we can talk a little bit about today, we also open these art academies around.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted. I wanted to get to that next, actually, because you mentioned it. I did not know about them, but what are these ANI art academies, and how are they sort of affiliated with the resorts? And can you tell us a little about the history and the concept of them?
So that's also at the same time, Tim came to us and said, hey, I love the resort in Anguilla. I'd love to build these around the world. At the same time, he had an idea about building these completely nonprofit, very intensive drawing and painting programs around the world to teach adults only. So it's only 18 and over in the school. They're full-time programs that are teaching aspiring artists, those that really want to become painters, artists that are doing that for a living. Tim himself started to study himself with a teacher who met this professor, artist who developed a methodology for teaching people how to draw and paint. And anybody who completes the program can draw and paint in a very hyper-realistic way, although they don't teach any particular aesthetic. Right. And so the work we were seeing from the students is, varies greatly from very impressionist type of stuff to more photorealistic stuff. And the relationship between the resorts and the schools, the academies, is that most of our guests that are interested in the arts will first of all see the work of the students hanging all over the the properties. And we actually do reprints of work of the different students. So in Anguilla here, we have work from Thailand, Sri Lanka, Dominican Republic as well. And those that are interested will go visit the schools, meet the students. They'll do painting and drawing classes with the students. The students will do sketches and things of the guests. So it's a pretty neat way for us to support the local communities, and for our visitors that want to support the local communities. There's this group of artists that are here that are looking to sell work and get work commissioned, and all the proceeds and everything from any of the sale of works goes 100% to the student. So it really was like a gift of passion from Tim, who loves the arts. He's a collector himself, to each of these communities. And so it's been a neat piece of what we have going on. And the schools are operating, fully. We have waiting lists in most of the schools for people to join, but at all 4 of our resort locations, they're each within a 10-minute drive. And then there's 2 schools in the States as well. There's one that's focused on disabled veterans. Right. That's in New Jersey. And then the headquarters of the Art Academy is actually in Pennsylvania, where the artist Anthony White-Chulis, who started the program, the methodology is based.
Yeah, so I can go to these resorts, interact with locals and with the schools, and actually maybe learn a little myself about how to draw and paint, right?
Yes.
That's a good deal. I like that idea, and a very, very. We all talk about sustainable travel and supporting communities, and this sounds like you found a good way to do that.
It's been a blessing that we connected with Tim. That he's allowed us to be involved in that aspect of what we're doing as well.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the resorts again. You said you do have 4 right now. What kind of resorts are they? And do you own all of them? Are you managing them? So we built all 4 resorts from scratch. We designed them. I ran around looking for what we thought were like amazing pieces of land. Designed them and built them all with this private resort concept in mind, staffed them all up that way. And so they're each between 10 and 15 bedrooms, depending on location. And they're all exclusive use on a buyout basis. So we only rent to one group at a time. And I think the way we describe it is as the overlap between a villa, and that it's, only rented to one group at a time with very customized, itineraries and menus and things for one group, but with all the facilities, staff, amenities that you'd find in a 5-star resort. So we have water slides and tennis pros and massage therapists that are all on staff full time. And just when you see all the bells and whistles and things in our gyms, Peloton bikes, and lots of outdoor toys and things for all ages. It is more like a resort as far as all the facilities. So it's that overlap. But it has to be booked, the entire resort, by a group, a family or something like that, correct?
Yes, only one group. But if you look at our pricing, I think one of the nice things of how we do have it set up is that you're paying based on the size of your group or the number of bedrooms you're going to use. And so, if you're only a group of 10, you're going to be paying our 5-bedroom rate, say. And not have to pay for the rooms you're not using. But the structure is that the per room cost you end up spending will be lower if you do come with a bigger group. Say in Dominican Republic, rent all 14 bedrooms. Your per room rate will be a bit less, but you're not having to pay the whole 14-bedroom rate if you are a bit of a smaller group. But rates start at 4 bedrooms is our lowest rate. Got
it. So the capacity for these resorts generally is going to be north of, if everything is full, is going to be 28, maybe more, right?
Yes, exactly. We're probably, our official capacity in Dominican Republic, which is 14 bedrooms, is 28 adults and 8 children. And we have tons of rollaways and other ways, that we.
So you can, with the kids, it'll be more capacity. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the spaces, for dining and entertaining are pretty massive in each of them. And we have specific, different settings and places we can fit. And we normally can seat up to 40 at each. So when people are doing slightly larger events or have other, destination wedding, things like that, we can expand beyond our capacity a bit.
Well, definitely. It sounds like these would be perfect for destination weddings and things like that. It would be excellent to have that many people and families and things. Now, talk a little bit about, again, where these resorts are located. Obviously, one in Anguilla, one in the Dominican Republic. You said one in Thailand. Where in Thailand? And also there's a 4th, right?
In Sri Lanka was the
Sri Lanka. Okay, very exotic. I guess my question would be, I understand why you chose Anguilla, because you were down there, and then obviously expanded in Dominican Republic. But how did you ever get to Thailand and to Sri Lanka?
So my wife and I actually lived in China for 10 years, primarily in the 90s, but into the early 2000s. And we traveled extensively while we were out there. We'd be taking vacations to Thailand all the time. Sri Lanka wasn't a place that I had actually been, but my folks had spent time there and always raved about it. And at the time we started to look for land, I looked in Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia. We went to Sri Lanka. We were Vietnam as well, and looked at different places. And we had in mind, places where the school could really do some great good, but also places that had a great appeal for a luxury traveler as well. And also for Tim, it's really, we do own and operate them all. He wanted to own them like long-term. So we're looking for places where it was also relatively easy to buy and pretty clean to own. And so with our Asia experience, we picked those two places. The war had just ended in Sri Lanka when we started to look for land over there. So it was kind of a unique time, and there was some great opportunity as far as like this piece of land we got is an amazing stretch of beachfront on the south coast. We're on the center of the south coast of Sri Lanka, which now is around 2.5-hour drive from Colombo. It's around a 30-minute seaplane ride. There's a lagoon right by us, which actually is a pretty great way to get down there. But we're pretty centrally located between, a lot of things going on in the south as far as Galle Town, which is a great site to go to. Tons of great beaches all along the coast, whale watching down there. So it's a neat mix of culture and adventure to be done there. In Thailand, where we had vacationed forever, we actually ended up building on a small island called Koh Yao Noi, which you may have heard of the Six Senses Yao Noi, which is a quite special spot. And the island is quite special. It's only a few thousand people live there. There are cars, but not many at all. So it's a great island for biking around. It's fishing villages, rice fields. And, it's this 30-minute boat ride from Phuket, and you feel like you've come, like 1,000 years away. I mean, it's just such a relaxed, I feel my blood pressure when I get on that island just immediately goes down. My wife wants us to quit life and go move out there.
Right.
It's really a great spot. The view, we have this Phang Nga Bay, which has these limestone karsts, which has a kind of a feel like Ha Long Bay up in Vietnam, kind of that same kind of stone formations. So it is a great view that you're kind of mesmerized all day while you're there. I have been out in that area, and it is beautiful, and never to your properties back then, but it sounds like heaven. Now for all the properties, are they all designed per the region? Are they kind of reflect where they are, or do they all have sort of similar attributes? No, I'd say they each are pretty unique. Anguilla, where we are, if you look through the photos, is extremely contemporary, almost like a glass house that's looking at this view. You're not getting the full perspective from this bedroom here, but it is quite amazing use of just glass to get all these views. Thailand is very much Thai in essence. As opposed to being modern Thai, the architect we use, who is a Thai architect, we were looking for something more kind of ancient in feel, that it felt like we kind of took over an old temple, or village, and then updated it to be modern. So I think it has very much that sense to it. Sri Lanka is very tropical. There's an architect in Sri Lanka named Jeffrey Bawa, who is like, I've never been to a country where one architect is just so ubiquitous and like was such an important part of the history there. And we had an architect, he's a French-Algerian guy named Reda Omalu, who we had met through some connections. He actually designed the Nam Hai in Vietnam, which I think is now a Four Seasons, but he was dying to do a project in Sri Lanka because he was this huge Jeffrey Bawa fan. Right. So I think it's really kind of an homage to a lot of the things that Jeffrey Bawa did, definitely more tropical in feel in general. And Dominican Republic, we worked with a local Dominican woman named Sarah Garcia, who did some boutique hotels of her own. And you'll find a pretty interesting mix of that I think we brought to the table with our Asia background and experience, but her Dominican, and it's a quite neat, also quite tropical, but has a Dominican flair to it as well.
Now, in terms of the dining and the cuisine that you offer at these different properties, I assume that might reflect the regional aspects of them, right?
Oh, that's for sure, for sure. I mean, our chef, each of our chefs now have been with us since opening. I think we somehow got the stars aligned for us that we had ended up with some quite spectacular chefs in each location. Our chef in Thailand actually cooked for the royal family for a number of years, and his Thai food is obviously off the charts, and everybody goes gaga doing cooking classes with him. Our chef in Sri Lanka, who is Sri Lankan, also spent a number of years in the Maldives and in India, and so he's got a whole range of kind of that South Asia kind of cuisines to them, but each of them also are doing great international cuisines as well. Our chef in Anguilla has actually spent months in Thailand, months in Sri Lanka with our chefs there. We send them all cross-training to different cities, to New York, London, to do training at different restaurants where we've connected them up with. So the food is a big wow part, but for sure, you're definitely going to get a taste of each local cuisine. And even if you come to Anguilla, you're going to get some of the Thai recipes that they've learned and vice versa.
This sounds like the perfect resort product for the COVID era, if you want to call it that, because you are going as a group with all your family and in a bubble, if you will. But you have I understand you might have a slightly different approach to COVID protocols at your resorts. Tell us how you handle things at these properties.
Yeah. Well, I think, because we're only dealing with one group at a time, it does give us the ability to also isolate our staff. So we're providing our guests with not only the bubble of the resort itself, which they have to itself, we pre-test our staff before guests come, and then we isolate staff from the local communities. This is more so a bigger issue in Sri Lanka and Dominican Republic, where there is actually community spread. In Anguilla, where we don't have community spread, right. We're actually more protecting the staff from the tourists, right, and then their families. So we still isolate our staff more, so we're kind of protecting the community. But it's a nice piece that we are able to give that full bubble, both of personnel and the resort too. And then we can scale, we're obviously doing everything you would expect as far as hygiene and cleaning and masking. Our guests do not need to mask anywhere on the property because they have the place themselves. And they're basically interacting with only their own family or friends. But we can scale up like how distant they would like our staff to be. We definitely have a big mix of guests. We have guests who wish our staff didn't wear masks at all, and just want things to be as loose as can be. So we'll do as loose as we can without, risking the safety of our staff. But then we have guests who want to come here, never leave the property, and, be in this isolated bubble the whole time. And the staff can do more step back food service delivery. We still do table service and plated meals. We keep the seats a bit more spread apart to give the staff room to kind of maneuver between the guests at the tables. But we also offer like a family style only kind of setup where the staff don't need to interact so directly with the guests. But that's really up to them.
Yeah. Now it sounds like a good deal. Now, do you have menus, or do we all have to get our iPhones out and take photos of the barcodes?
All the menus are actually built specifically for each group in residence at a time. So there's a lot of communication that's going on before the guests come. Ideally, sometimes we can't get the attention of our guests before them. Sometimes guests can't think about vacation until they're on it, and so the staff and the chef can really work, put it together and get a read on them. But we love the more information we can get ahead of time about dietary preferences for sure, any allergies, who's gluten-free, who's a vegan, and then we predetermine the menus. And there's some shifting once they come in, but so it's not like they're ordering a la carte. We'd be building up these menus ahead of time, so they're not having to. We definitely for sure have minimized paper in the bedrooms and other places, and we do have online digital forms of pretty much everything for them. But for menus in particular, it's not something we normally use anyway. And just like continue with the food, which we touched on a bit, some of our guests want to set every dish at every meal and know it ahead of time. But some of our guests like when it's a bit of a surprise, which I think is a bit more fun, where each meal is in some ways like a tasting menu, where you don't know what's coming and the chef will kind of bring it out, put a plate down in front of you, explain what it is you're going to eat. And then we already know everybody's own dietary restrictions, so we can build around those. So they know they're getting something they will eat. But I think it's kind of fun that way. And for our chefs, I think one of the reasons they've been with us for so long is because it's not like running the same menu with maybe a few specials every night. These guys are reinventing themselves, every time a group comes, and learning things from different guests. Or we had actually a wedding where they wanted our chef to replicate their favorite dishes at like 8 different restaurants.
Of course. Yeah. So you sent them to those restaurants and you had them learn it, and they came back, right?
Well, not quite that far. We had these were restaurants that they had a relationship with. We got the menu, got what they were, some little insight into the recipes from the chefs at those restaurants. And then our chef replicated them, which is actually kind of neat. It was a neat thing because he was serving basically like the such and such a dish from such and such a restaurant. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else you want to highlight about the resorts themselves, the accommodations, things like that, before we talk a little bit about how you can work with high-end travel advisors to book these properties?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think that I think there is something similar you'll find across all of our resorts. I mean, it is a very high service that we're offering, but it is a very, I'd say, more friendly, casual type. I mean, we can do the white glove service for those that really need it, for sure, when we're dealing with some of the Asian and Europeans, more so than the Americans. But our kind of DNA for us is that the staff really connect with our guests. I mean, because they're all dealing with one group, you're finding this connection. And it's, more often than not, you're seeing, and some of this is pre-COVID, but you're seeing all the guests hugging, the staff when they're leaving. And a tear is not the rarest thing that you're seeing, because they just really get in touch. And that's when we really shine, is when it is guests that are looking to make a connection where they're going. Because our staff are that's the default, is to be open that way and become very much part of the trip. And we get guests who just want the staff to, not be seen. And then our staff can do it, but that's not our DNA. Yeah. Our DNA is really a warmer, connected, with the staff. So I think that runs across all of our resorts. But then there's unique things at each, for sure, as far as the experiences and adventure things that can be done off a property. I mean, in a place like Anguilla, which is so accessible, easy to get around, and quite a foodie island on its own, the whole island plays a bigger part of the experience. Likewise, in like Koh Samui in Thailand, where, this island is yours. It's even though it's not a private island, it's just such a small, easy, accessible island. But in places like Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka and Dominican Republic, where we knew that so much would be centered on the resorts are even more blown out and larger, more bells and whistles and facilities. So those two locations, it's more about, everything and being together at the resort itself. So a little bit of variation between them, but I think that the theme that you'd find running across them is this warmth of our team. I guess last thing I'd say about service-wise, a lot of our key people actually came out of the Aman resorts. The gentleman who runs our whole hospitality operation and trained up most of our teams was with them for a good number of years. So you'd see a lot of similarities as far as fine touches and attention to detail of our service delivery, but so different than Aman. Aman's amazing, but you going there really as a couple and barely speaking above a whisper for a week. At Ani, it's about coming with 20, 25 people, throwing your stuff wherever you want, take over the music system, crank it up, splash in the pool. So it's fun family party is why you're coming to stay with us.
No, absolutely. And now let's talk a little bit about how travel advisors can work with you and book their clients, especially obviously groups and families. What are the keys for them to work with you?
Yeah, where they can help us and vice versa the most is, because they're familiar with their clients and all their preferences. And, the more they can kind of be that go-between for us and teach us as much as they can about how to please their clients. We love it when the travel agents know their clients well and they can give us a heads up, because there's nothing better for us to be able to surprise and already know how they like their coffee or how they like their martini, or what kind of bug spray they would never use and things like that. So we really look to our agent partners for that insight as much as possible, and kind of nudging. We try not to be too pushy with our guests before they come, but do want to get that kind of as much insight. So they're key for us that way. And it's, we do quite often, we also work with some of like wholesalers, tour operators when more often when we're part of a larger trip. So let's say a group is going to Sri Lanka for 2 weeks and they're spending 5 of those days with us, then quite often we may be working with a local DMC or a wholesaler at times. But if the trip is just to us, we are very much a one-stop shop for the travel advisors, as far as knowing kind of what are the best activities, adventures in each location, who we think are the best suppliers to work with. So we can make their life quite easy that way, helping them build up itineraries for what they're doing with us. But so we work both
all the activities they can do out in the area, right?
Yeah. And it kind of, just one thing that we didn't talk about reminds me of our kind of pricing structure. I think is unique, is that we are quite all inclusive. So food, drinks, massage treatments, laundry, cooking classes, tennis lessons, pretty much everything that our full team delivers to our guests is included in our rates. And we think that structure makes for a much more relaxing time for our guests, that they're not having to pay attention to how many drinks are happening. They don't have to worry about a padded bill or anything like that, because it's all included. We what is chargeable are these outside excursions and activities that, depending on what a group's looking to do, those would be the extras.
Now, in terms of compensation for travel advisors who book you, do you offer commission? Should they mark up the whole price? How does this work?
So the rates that you'll see published for us, which are pretty, straight, even across the board, through all channels. Those published rates are commissionable. Our standard commission is at 12%, which we kind of think is comparable to 15% on the room rate, because our rates are so inclusive. It's as if we are commissioning you on the food, drinks, and all these other things that we include. So we think it's probably comparable to 15% on the room rate component. We do have an incentive program for those agents that book us 3 times in a year between any of our resorts or any agencies we give them. There's a preferred commission rate of 15%. Preferred commission rate of 17%. And we actually pay the 5% on the first 2. So when you get the third booking, we'll give you that additional 5% on the first 2.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm sure that sounds like, and of course, the booking groups like families or, collectives of friends and things like that is really where the money is for especially the high end travel advisors these days. And so I'm sure that they are looking forward to getting back to booking your properties around the world. I know it's probably been tough to get, especially the Asia properties right now, to get out there, but maybe you're starting to get. So how are bookings right now? Are you seeing some bookings?
Well, Dominican Republic opened in July.
Okay.
We will by far have our best year we've ever had from, say, July 2020 through June 2021. We'll probably be up like 30% from last year. It's just like booking after booking after booking. And I think it was just the country opened quite early for Americans.
Right.
And the protocols are pretty simple, straightforward. So for those that are looking for kind of hassle-free, but still safe with what we have going on, I think it was super attractive. Anguilla, we opened in November, a bit more strict about pre-testing and testing requirements and how we kind of can move our guests around for different experience on island, but still can offer a great rounded experience here, even outside the resort. And we've been quite busy. November, December, January, we're quite booked. And now it's kind of scattered almost every other week we seem to be booked here. So of Caribbean properties, we've actually been doing quite well. And I think it touches on what you mentioned earlier, that like in this kind of post-COVID world, people looking for their private spaces, villas in general, I think have become more attractive. And, now we kind of fit in nicely for those that maybe would normally be going to a top end resort. They can come with us to us, have that privacy, but not give up all the staff and services. And Asia, Sri Lanka just opened a couple weeks ago. We had a few small kind of short stays. We were part of the first group of properties that were certified to take international guests. But actually, just this week, tomorrow, we have our first full-blown, 2-week, multi-gen group that's coming in for an extended stay. So kind of fingers crossed that Sri Lanka follows the pattern of DR and Anguilla as far as opening. Thailand, we're only dealing with local residents and things, and which we've had some when different times there's restrictions between provinces in Thailand. And we can deal with those that have done 14-day quarantine already. They could then stay with us, but we're not certified that our province, there's not any properties in our province that are certified for quarantine. And actually, one last note about this whole pandemic is, we're blessed. Tim, our owner, kept everybody fully employed the whole time. So even before anything opened, we have been fully operational and fully employed, which is, quite special and blessed as far as that is concerned. And we were kind of ahead of the curve in each of our destinations as far as having our protocols and everything in place, because in Thailand, we had a family from China that was with us from at the end of January who didn't want to return to China at the time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And and as all of our other bookings were canceling, they had to leave us for 1 week for another group. But as all of our other bookings canceled, they just came in and filled up. So they stayed with us for all of February, all of March, all of April, and the first 2 weeks of May before they decided to go back to China. And so we kind of had all that time operational in the pandemic, and put the protocols in place. So when it was time to go in Dominican Republic and then even Anguilla and now in Sri Lanka, we had everything kind of all set up operationally. So we were able to hit the ground running that way.
No, that's great. And that's amazing. That was quite a booking from that Chinese.
Yeah, that made for Thailand. I mean, even though Thailand's not open now, 2020 wasn't that bad because we kind of had that long stretch at the beginning of the year.
Well, now the Chinese family stayed several months. What is the average stay for these groups at your properties?
I mean, our average stay is probably 5.5 days, because we're normally getting, we have officially a 5-night minimum, but we're normally getting, most of our bookings are probably 7 or 8 nights, the people coming weekend to weekend. In Asia, more so than in the Caribbean, but we get it some in the Caribbean. You'll get these long weekends, long holiday weekends where somebody would come for 4 or 5 days. Depending on the dates, we can be a little bit flexible on the 5-night minimum and how it fits into our calendar. So yeah, it's not a week. People are normally coming to us because they're coming with a family.
Yeah, for a week, and sounds logical. Now, given this, obviously you're going to ramp up, and hopefully all these resorts are going to get back to whatever normal is and be successful. Are you looking to expand any private resorts in the future somewhere? Do you have any ideas of where?
For sure, we happen to have a very large piece of land in Panama, in Bocas del Toro, that we're kind of looking at maybe getting into construction in 2022, if the stars align correctly, but we have that property already. We are looking at the west coast of Mexico as well, because we have had a good number of people from the west coast that stayed with us, but they're all crying and begging us to do something where they can fly nonstop.
Right.
A lot of people ask us to do Hawaii, but Hawaii, for us, labor-wise, you can imagine labor costs in Hawaii versus Sri Lanka. And for our model, and if you look how we're priced, we are offering, clearly a top-level product. But when you divide it out per room or per person, we're really priced for a bit of a wider market. You're looking at, on average, probably $500 to $700 per person per night. So with everything that we include, it's not an outrageous sum, but for us to be able to deliver that, the numbers can get a little bit out of whack in a place like Hawaii. So west coast of Mexico, we still have our eye in Indonesia, in a few different places. We started out looking early days down in South Africa and in Zanzibar as well, and eventually we'd love to have something there in that part of the world. Because Tim, he envisions, when he gets, he's a pretty young guy, but when he gets a bit older, we'd love to kind of hop around from place to place. So we those are the initial places. And at this point, we're looking at building, owning, and operating all of them. But a little bit further in the future, we may look at taking on existing properties that kind of have the right bones for what we're looking to do. And then potentially, through management or acquisition, get into places that already exist.
Well, it sounds like you got some great plans there, and sounds like incredible destinations. You have incredible destinations, and now to get some more would be interesting and really useful for a lot of people who want to go experience this. Talk a little about, is there anything else you want to get out to travel advisors about any resort or private resorts and what you offer?
Yeah, look, I think if they remember anything about us, which I think has come out pretty clear, is, it's for groups of friends and families that are looking to travel together. We will get inquiries sometimes for, one or two couples or one small family of five. And, we don't expect to be thought of in those cases. We're happy to have them. But we do think, once you're at a group of 12, 20, 28 people, we don't feel like much better options as far as a place where they could, have everything kind of customized, cater to them. And it's such a special way to travel together as a group. I think villa-wise, those that love that kind of experience already know, for quality time together, instead of being at a resort where you're, okay, what time are we meeting and where are we having dinner that time? To just be together in a more effortless way. So we kind of have that aspect with all the staff services and everything. So I think it is a quite special way, once you do have somebody traveling for a group. And I think, one huge thing we've seen in the Caribbean, which it must be every third or fourth inquiry now, we seem to get is a 40th birthday or a 50th birthday. As that is clearly like a major trend in travel. Now we're expecting all these makeup birthday trips coming up now for if you missed your 40th or your 50th in 2020. We're getting a whole bunch of those now, but that's literally maybe 20% of our business in the Caribbean could be 40th and 50th celebrations. So, if you have clients that, have some milestone celebration, it's kind of the perfect setup for something like that.
Or destination weddings for smaller groups.
Yeah, for sure. Small destination weddings work great with us as well. I mean, for us, every group is like an event in essence, a corporate retreat likewise. But even if it's not for a special event, what we're putting together for groups as far as meals and activities and everything, it's almost like an event.
Now, where can travel advisors go to find out more information about any private resorts? I know obviously the website, tell us what that is. And
yeah, so aniprivateresorts.com is the website. It's got a great deal of information on there as far as, details on each of the resorts, but there's also sections which are great on each of these types of groups. So there's a section on destination weddings, a section on milestone celebrations, a section actually on kosher travel, which has become a significant piece of our business as well.
Sure.
Again, because we're catering to only one group at a time, and we actually have it down in a pretty high level way where we're offering the same kind of gourmet cuisine type experience for kosher. I think most luxury kosher travels are used to sacrificing a bit when they travel because what's available. So we've kind of doing it without any of the sacrifice, which they can see a bit more detail of that on the website. So I think is a neat and lots of videos and things for agents. If they go on our website, at the bottom there is a link that says agents. It takes to an agent portal, and there's no username needed, but there's a password, and the password is "it's all yours," and will get you into. You can see our availability calendars live, and you can download brochures on each of the resorts, our food and beverage program in each place, and things about activities, videos and photography as well. So, and then also reaching out to us, reservations at aniprivateresorts.com gets to a team of 3 of us that have 24 coverage. Okay. We have a woman in Asia who runs kind of our marketing and reservations over there. So somebody will get back to them quite quickly. We can create lots of custom materials if you needed something, white label videos that way as well. So, we try to be as helpful to our partners as well to help them to market and sell. And I do feel pretty confident saying we're a great partner to work with for the travel advisors.
Well, Ira, I want to thank you for spending the time with us to tell us about Annie Private Resorts. Sounds like some marvelous properties, especially as we emerge from the COVID-19. So I want to get away and retreat like this. I want to do it right now, actually, to be honest with you, rather than quarantining or sitting in my apartment most of the time. But it sounds like a great option for your upscale clients who have things to celebrate and want to go out and really take over a smaller resort property and get all the amenities, all inclusive, everything else. So great product and great to hear from you about it. And again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.